All right, Michael. Um, you ready?
Yeah, I'm
All
good.
right, so here we go. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, folks, welcome back to the podcast. Thrilled to have back Michael Remole. Michael, welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be back.
Awesome. So Michael has been working with children and families for close to 2 decades in a variety of capacities, including as a multi-systemic therapist, clinical director, children's pastor, camp counselor, and speaker. After serving as a children's pastor, he went on to obtain his Master of Arts in Clinical Counseling from Ashland Theological Seminary. Following seminary, Michael worked at the Buckeye Ranch in Columbus, Ohio as a multi-systemic therapist, working with individuals 12 to 18 and their families. Primary focus was to work with the family system to assist children who are having difficulties with behavior. Michael has since founded and leads Gateway Family Services of Illinois, providing trauma-focused equine-assisted psychotherapy, individual and family therapy. He's also the founder of the Rising Tides Conference, which is coming up, and we're going to be talking a lot about that. Michael, welcome back to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dude, I just got to say, you are so inspiring. I mean, you do a lot, but you're just so passionate about what you do. And, I see you out there, and obviously we've spoken a couple times, but really, it's awesome to have you back here.
Well, thank you. My parents always said, find something that you love to do and find out how to get paid to do it. And I can't. I feel like I'm living that every day. I'm living my dream job.
There you go. So now there were a couple additions to your bio, which I want to highlight here. So why don't you take the time to do that?
Yeah, so I was able to complete my EMDR specialist for kids with the Agate Institute with Ana Gomez. And so just learning the ins and outs of how do we provide appropriate EMDR therapy for kids, which was amazing. And then I also have enrolled as a fellow at UC Davis with the Infant Parent Child Institute there. And so I'm over halfway through that fellowship and just continue to learn incredible things for birth to 5. And so through that, I've been able to become an infant early childhood mental health consultant for the state of Illinois.
Wow, awesome. So we're going to talk about the conference, but before we do, I want to give those listeners who maybe haven't heard our previous interviews, let's give them a thumbnail sketch of how the heck did you get into this field?
Yeah, so it started, I was a children's pastor first. That's what my undergrad was in. And I had kids and families coming to me all the time in that pastoral role. And I felt like, man, I just was missing something. There was only so much I could give and provide for the families. And so I realized that my role needed to change. And I decided to pursue my master's in clinical counseling. And I went to Ashland Theological Seminary. And when I was there, I connected with a friend who was passionate about equine assisted psychotherapy, which is just the background on me. I grew up showing and training horses from 10 years on up. That was
Oh,
my
wow.
life. And so knew that there was something amazing about working with horses, and I wanted to help people. And so the more I learned about mental health and being a counselor, and then the more I learned about the science, the neuroscience behind working with horses, and it made sense why horses had been so powerful for me as a child growing up. And I just couldn't help but think, I want to provide this as a gift to other people that they can find healing in the way that I did growing up. And so that's kind of how I came to this. And after working at the Buckeye Ranch for a while and getting my independent license, I moved back home and it started the clinical practice here. And we've grown from a team of just me to a team of 15 now, and providing services to over 100 families a week here, whether that's on site here at our farm, or since I've spoke to you last, we are now taking our miniature horses into several different school districts in the area and being able to continue the work there as well.
What was it when you were a pastor for kids? You said, you realized you wanted to help more. What were you seeing? That,
Yeah.
you know,
I think that the big thing I was seeing was a lot of kids who had experienced trauma, and I didn't know what exactly to do. There was a lot of complex behaviors that were showing up at home or in the school, in the classroom setting. And I couldn't quite figure out what to do and how to best help them. And so I felt like my toolbox, I had a pretty full toolbox as far as working with kids, but there were a lot of kids I just was stumped and I didn't
mm.
know how to best help support the families. And so that's why I decided to go and pursue my master's in counseling.
All right. So let's jump to this conference. Now, I'm going to make a little joke here. Pardon my humor, but you've got a couple of people here who Bruce Perry. Who's Bruce Perry? Who is this? How the heck? Talk about that. How did you get involved with Dr. Perry? I mean, come on,
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, so the model of therapy that we use here is called natural lifemanship, and that is the basis of human and horse brain development and the importance of relationships. And a lot of the work there, it ties into Dr. Perry's neurosequential process. And I was introduced to Dr. Perry through natural lifemanship, and I jumped on board. I remember during my training for natural lifemanship, I ordered Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, and I'm not a really fast reader, but I read that in 24 hours. I just couldn't put it down and signed up for the NMT phase 1 and went out to boot camp and the symposium. And every time Dr. Perry had something, online, I've jumped on those calls to try and learn from him. And it's been my dream after going out to Banff for his symposium. I was like, we need to bring this back to Central Illinois. I want to share the gift to Dr. Perry with as many people as possible. And so he can attest to this. I send a lot of emails asking for him to come join us,
Did
and
you?
he's agreed to do that to come and share with us. And he's been with us the last 2 Rising Tides that we've had, and I just feel like his neurosequential process has radically changed my life personally and professionally. And I couldn't help but he has to be the keynote, one of the keynotes for Rising Tide.
So, what was the impetus for you to start Rising Tide? Tell us about this conference.
Yeah. When I moved to Illinois in 2014, I kind of thought it was going to be just kind of a short stay before I moved someplace else. And then we had a survey that was done to assess the needs of our community, and recognizing that Vermilion County, where we live, has the highest residential placement rate. We have our abuse and neglect rates are twice the state average.
Oh,
And
wow.
we have a very high addiction and overdose rate here in Vermilion County. We're a very rural area. And when I moved here, there were very few therapists that were working with kids. And so to me, after I went out to the symposium and I came back home, it just felt like in order for us to see the kind of sustainable change that we wanted to see with our kids and families, we had to start to equip those around us, the teachers, the mentors, the paraprofessionals, the pastors, the community leaders, so that the change that we were making and working with that in that family system could be carried out in all spheres of life for the kid. But I couldn't do that by myself. I
Mm-hmm.
needed to bring in other people to do that. And I remember I was mowing my yard one day, and heard the saying from JFK that a rising tide raises all ships. And I was like, that's it. I want to have a conference called Rising Tide that equips people, no matter what your line of work is, that it helps you make the world a better place, that helps you heal personally, helps your family heal, and that we can break those generational cycles of abuse and neglect, and our communities can be healthier and happier and safer. And so that's where it started from. And then part of my, like, in reflecting back on, what would make a great conference, I went back to the people who have influenced me. Their speaking, their teaching, their work has really influenced me. And I just started reaching out because I was like, if they can join us for Rising Tide, then I feel like we're going to make a much bigger impact here in Vermilion County than if I just did it by myself.
That's an incredible story. Super freaking inspiring. So, I mean, you're such a doer. You seem to have this ability to not just envision ideas and concepts, but to go out and make them create them. So, Pulling back a little, so the Rising Tide Conference is for who?
Yeah, so we've really tried to be intentional in this, that we're going to be able to speak to a wide variety of audiences, from your mental health professionals, your counselors, social workers, LMFTs, as well as your educators, your community leaders, your parents, paraprofessionals, pastors. Because we've invited a lot of people from a variety of different backgrounds, we wanted to really be a very comprehensive conference, not just for mental health professionals, because I really think, and Dr. Perry is really starting to speak to this about the mental health crisis that we're facing, is that there is such a high need for people who need services, and there are few therapists to meet that need. Like, it's not realistic. We don't have enough hours in the day to appropriately meet that need. And so in order to really address the needs of those who are struggling, we've got to equip other people in the community. We've got to equip those teachers, those parents, those caregivers to really start to address that, so that we can provide the type of services that individuals need.
So it's for a wide variety of an audience, and they're going to learn what skills about helping.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, so we're going to take a look at basic brain development, Dr. Perry's neurosequential process, and then we're going to continue to build off of that with our presenters, whether that's some of our keynote presenters, our breakout presenters. And so we have to understand how we operate. We have to have a pretty solid foundation of the neurosequential process. And then as we're looking at that, then what does that look like in the classroom? So strategies for teachers. We've got presenters who have been in the classroom, they've been administrators, principals, and now their job is to help equip other people. We've got people who've been in clinical settings who are providing direct care. So how do you help the client, the family system change? We've got people who've been influential in the community and really being creative in how they're looking outside the clinical walls to make systemic change in their community, so that we can be more proactive instead of reactive to those who've experienced trauma. So we're going to be gaining understanding. We're going to be taking a look at what this looks like for us. And then what do we do? What kind of tools can we put in our tool belt that will help us no matter what line of work we do?
Let's talk just a little bit about the neurosequential model, because I think maybe a lot of people aren't familiar with that. And I want to talk about the guests themselves, but just give us a thumbnail sketch of what is Dr. Perry talking about when he says the neurosequential model?
Yeah, so it's talking about how the brain naturally develops from the bottom up and the inside out. So starting with for the basic brainstem, our survival responses, that if we are going to help an individual, we've got to help regulate that lower part of the brain. And then he talks about how you need to relate. So moving up through that process. So first we regulate, then we engage the emotional part of the brain, and then we can reason. But a lot of us struggle because we jump right to reason when someone's dysregulated. So he takes a look at how does the brain naturally develop, and then how can we engage the brain in the sequential order so that we can get a more fully integrated brain, that we can help individuals organize the bottom parts of the brain so that they can access the more high-level thinking parts of the brain. He talks about the brainstem, which is survival, things that we don't have to think about. Then the diencephalon, the next layer up, is where am I at in space, and how is space impacting me? And then on top of that is the limbic system, the emotional part, relationship part of our brain, and then the thinking part of our brain, the high-level problem-solving part of our brain. The neurosequential process talks about the importance of in engaging the brain in the correct order. We're going to start with regulating, providing the basic rhythm for the brainstem, the diencephalon, and then we engage emotionally and relationally, and then we get to the thinking part. I like to think about it as we work on the foundation of the house. We're making sure the bricks are good for the foundation of the house before we start to take a look at the roof. So we're building in a sequential order so that the brain can, we're engaging it in the natural way that it develops, and we're helping them build a more comprehensive and more integrated brain. So they're building healthy pathways that engage all parts of it.
Awesome. All right. Let me just remind everyone I'm speaking with Michael Remole. His Rising Tide Conference is happening when?
October 6th and 7th.
Okay. And that's online?
Or in person. We've got a co-host site in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, one in Glendon, Minnesota, and one in Boys Ranch, Texas. And then our primary site where we're launching out of is in Danville, Illinois.
I'm just laughing because, dude, you're doing it. No, it's just incredible to me, Michael. It's just so inspiring how you're doing all this. So let's talk a little bit more about this. So people can come, they can access this online. Let's talk about how people can access this conference.
Yeah, one of the things that I know is that in starting my practice, it was tough for me to get away. My schedule was busy, and so I knew we had to get creative in creating a conference that was affordable and accessible for people, and that met people's busy schedules and lives. So we have co-host sites where we can connect with other people, like-minded people, in an area that's closer to us to cut down on travel cost and time away from work and things like that, and build a network there and connect that way. And then we also know that people may not be able to get the 2 days off from work. So all of the presentations, except for Dr. Perry's, are available on demand until December 31st. So you have access to this material to watch it, to rewatch it, and to soak it all in, even if you're not able to attend October 6th and 7th, because I know that that's really important. I also know that there's times when you go to a conference and there's such rich content that you hit a point where you're like, wow, I'm maxed out on what I can take in. I need to digest this before I can take on any more. That's why the on-demand is so important to me, is that I can come back to it later and I'm going to learn more, digest it a little bit more, wrestle with that content, so that then I can take those things and put them in practice at home, my job, wherever. And so, yeah, so addressing it, it's affordable, it's accessible, and it meets the busy lifestyle of everyone.
So you said all the other presentations were on demand except Dr. Perry's. So, and what does that mean specifically? So someone who's interested in hearing him has to attend that day, either
So
online or in
he
person?
is, yeah, 9 o'clock Central Standard Time till 10:30. And so if you're attending in person, you need to, make sure that you are there for that, or virtually, you can also watch that. But that is the only time that is available for those who are attending. Just making sure that you get that 9 to 10:30 window blocked off. And then we do have, because, and I didn't share this when I mentioned our co-host sites, this year we've added a co-host site in the Middle East and a co-host site in Australia. And they have that. Theirs is the Middle East is going to be the 13th, 14th, and the Australia is the 14th, 15th. And what we're going to do is they are going to be able to have access to Dr. Perry's during their live presentation as well.
Wow. Now, can you mention who are the presenters? Just give a little brief overview.
Yeah, we have 6 keynote presenters. Dr. Bruce Perry, we've got Dr. Stephen Porges with the Polyvagal Institute, Dr. Melissa Merrick, CEO of Prevent Child Abuse America, Dr. Stuart Avalon with Think Kids and Harvard Medical School and Mass General Hospital, and then Alex Kechetani is California Teacher of the Year. And then Ben Zobrist was the 2016 World Series MVP, and he has really been taking a different approach and talking about mental health and being, he's created Champion Forward, and how do we help kids and those in high pressure situations? How do we navigate that stress? So those are our 6 keynotes. And then we have 22 breakout presenters that are going to dive deeper into a variety of different things. From occupational therapy, we have a whole track for occupational therapists that can really look at, from birth, the full lifespan. What does this look like? We have people presenters who are talking about what this looks like in the community. How do we transform the community? How do we create leaders who are not just trauma informed, but are trauma responsive? So we've got Tim and Ann Grove from WellPoint up in Milwaukee. We've got Michelle Mikeheader from the Neurosequential Model in Cal Farley's, Emily Wong from Whole Services in Calgary. We've got Ana Gomez talking about those complex behaviors and the role that dissociation plays with clients, and how do we navigate that. Robin Goebel, she's been on your podcast before, and she's doing amazing things, and she's going to be talking about how do we address those baffling behaviors. What are the ways that we take a look at that? We've got Philip Tedeschi. He is with the University of Denver, and he's going to be talking about animal assisted therapy. Obviously, that's very close and near and dear to my heart. And one of the things that's really important for us is animal welfare, that
Mm.
animals that we are inviting into this relationship, this therapeutic relationship, how do we make sure it's appropriate and okay for them? How do we take care of them in the midst of this? And that they're not a tool, that they're a being that we're partnering with. So he's going to talk about that. And then Shell Taylor from Australia is going to be, Can I Hold Your Paw? She does canine assisted therapy. So there are a lot. I would encourage people to get out on the website and take a look at the lineup of presenters, because I feel like we have a rock star team. And I'm a little partial because one of the presenters is my wife, and I think she's an incredible therapist as well. And so I can't overlook her. But Gabby Remole is going to be presenting on state dependent functioning and how does that impact our relationships as well.
The website is risingtideconference.com. We'll have that linked up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. So how would you say this? I mean, you'd mentioned before that there are a lot of conferences out there, obviously. How are you differentiating this? What are you, I mean, yeah, from the others?
Yeah, I think one of the things that is, conferences that I've attended are there are a lot of theory, talking about a lot of things. And then I'm an activator. You mentioned that I like to do things. So I love to hear the content, and then I need to know what's next. I need to know, okay, you taught me about the neurosequential process, but what do I do about it? And
Mm.
that is the part that I feel like we've done a really good job of having a pretty good solid foundation of neuroscience and trauma, and how the trauma impacts us, how the trauma, the transgenerational trauma, the impact that it has in our communities and all those things. But then what do we do as providers, as parents, as teachers? And so we've brought in people who are able to provide those practical skills for you
Mm.
and strategies that I think are going to move us to the next level. And there are people that aren't just talking theory. There are people who are living it, and they're seeing the fruit of their labor with the clients that they serve. And so I think that's what makes us different.
I love that. Yeah, it really feels like you're providing people with this amazing information, but you're also providing them with, as you say, all right, how can I utilize this? How can I implement this? Whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a mental health therapist, whatever, that to me is really exciting. It sounds like people are going to be getting this information and also getting information about what they can do with this information.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to make sure that people are encouraged, because I think a lot of times in this work, it can get very discouraging. So hearing, that there is something that we can do, there are things that we can do. And I want them to be equipped so that they can go out and make a difference. Like, we all got into this work because we wanted to help people, and sometimes we lose sight of that. We can get discouraged, and I'm quite confident that our presenters are going to inspire other people to go and make a difference wherever they work, because that's what they're doing in their own communities.
So this is the third time you put the conference on.
Yes.
How has this evolved for you? The material of the conference. How has your, if at all, how has your goal with the conference shifted or evolved?
This was to help Vermilion County. This was to help our area. And one of the things that I would say is figuring out those pieces that it can be overwhelming to hear the content of the neurosequential model, and people like, oh, neuroscience. So mine has kind of evolved from making this more accessible. So taking Dr. Perry's work and then finding the people, the practical implementation parts of it, making sure that they're included in that, so that it's that good balance for people. So I think that's
Mm-hmm.
been the biggest thing for this. I also recognize the fact that in order for this to be digestible, we've got to have it accessible a little bit longer. We can handle little bits and pieces here and there.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to need to be able to come back to it. So when we first started launching Rising Tide, it was right before COVID. And then COVID had kind of wrecked some things, but it forced us to get creative in how we were going to provide this. And that's the part that I think that has changed, because my thought was it was going to be a 2-day conference where there was just get what you can and good luck.
Good luck. Right.
And then, and now to say the on-demand part, And then our big change has been focusing on community and connections and relationships. We're all about relationships, but I didn't think about the conference being relational as much. And then also, as you experience the conference, we're integrating the neurosequential process of regulate, relate, reason. When we first started, we went straight to reason. And now we're implementing the neurosequential process through all the things, even visual regulation through the website, music, and integrating dance and things like that we're planning to do with the conference. That is part of what has evolved, because the more I understand the neurosequential process, the more it fits into all the little things and ways that we can provide active and passive regulation that helps us learn better, even as adults. And then how do we, provide enough stimulation without overstimulating? And how do we provide that appropriate amount of dosing that Dr. Perry talks about? So those are some of the shifts and changes that we've made along the way in Rising Tide, to where it's more accessible. And honestly, I think it's going to be more beneficial for those who attend, because they can digest the information for a lot longer.
Really interesting how you've given thought to not just what is within the conference, but how it's being presented, and even utilizing the neurosequential model to help you present the whole conference. That's really cool.
Thanks.
So
yeah,
go ahead.
Well, and I think that is a part of learning this, is the more Dr. Perry has taught us, the more I think we need to be able to experience this, because then that's going to better help us as we go to implement it with those around us.
Right. And you mentioned you've got these other satellite sites in Australia and the Middle East. How did you acquire those? How did you engage those?
So Maha and Shell, who are the two co-host sites, the leaders there, they have been with me with the NMT cohorts. And so we've been talking about what this looks like and how we could make this accessible over there. And it's been a lot of fun. We've had to get pretty creative on how we navigate the time zones and also internet and all those good things. But Shell was part of the Rising Tide conference in 2021. And I will tell you, there was just this beautiful bit of community that took place with Blossom Tree Psychology and the organization that she leads there. It was amazing to see how online because of COVID, hers went completely virtual. So we did a presentation, and then we had these processing groups, and to hear the people talk about the processing and what changes, what small changes they would make in their clinical setting or in their classroom. It was amazing. And to me, I couldn't help but think we have to partner with them again, because they inspired me and taught me a lot through the process as well.
Awesome. All right, Michael, let's wrap up here. So people want to find out more and register. Where should they go?
Yeah, head on over to risingtideconference.com. And we have the early bird registration is available till September 15th. But tickets are still full price, is $199. And so you can earn up to 30 continuing education units, CPDUs, multiple licensures that we can offer continuing ed for $199. I don't think that you can have this lineup for that kind of price as well.
Yeah, awesome. All right, man. We'll have all this linked up. Michael, you are so freaking inspiring. And what you're doing is, it's really incredible. It really is. And I commend you. I love having you on this podcast. You just emanate inspiration, and hopefully I'm soaking it in.
Well, thank you very much. I would say I'm inspired and motivated by you as well. So thank you. And thank you for all the work you're doing for our community. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
I appreciate that. All right, man. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.